Hello and welcome again to the Political Pulse Show. As always, I'm your host, Larry Leese. And on today's episode, we're diving into the headlines coming out of New Jersey. Make sure you guys like this video down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. The Republicans in New Jersey, they're in a dogfight with the Democrats for the governorship. Jack Ciattarelli, probably butchered his name, is surging in the polls, and Sherrill on the Democrat side is in complete and total free fall. And the early vote data looks pretty good, and we're going to get to the early vote update as well. But this is an indicator because if Democrats were seeing this massive surge, you wouldn't see Republicans netting a ridiculous amount in the voter registration data, where the Republicans have net 7,000 voters over the past month. And I'm sure they're going to net even more in October as we get closer to election season. And this is just a massive increase, even from what they net in August, where they net 3,000. Some of this could be the Charlie Kirk effect. I think a lot of it is just we're also getting closer and closer to the election. More people are becoming invested in this race, and Republicans in New Jersey, they're just fed up. They're angry with the way things are going, and they want change. And this is something that a lot of people are anticipating would help the Democrats. But I think that this is a case where the Republicans are the angry party. Now, Virginia might be a little bit of a different story because in the state of Virginia, you have a lot of government workers and people in Northern Virginia that are very establishmentarian. Excuse me. And they do not like Donald Trump and show up for every little possible election. And Republicans are not running the strongest candidate, and the Democrats are running one of their better candidates, who is awful all around. But so are a lot of the voters in Northern Virginia, to the point where she's going to do well. Now, New Jersey, you have an awful Democrat who embodies everything wrong with the establishment there in politics. You have a Republican candidate who's very strong, and you have a Democrat governor who is outgoing, who's lost popularity even from his narrow 2021 victory over Jack Ciattarelli. And Republicans are focusing more time, money, and energy on that race this time than they did last time. The environment is different. That's true, but honestly, the gap in candidate quality, among other things, and all these other indications are pointing towards a Republican surge. And it's crazy because Republicans didn't really see a voter registration bump from 2020 to 2022. They gained 10,000, and Republicans have netted 220,000 since 2021, and that's when Jack lost by 84,000 votes. Now, there's a lot more to it than just party registration, and we know that, and we understand that. But still, it's important to note, and it's important to take into consideration the fact that means that their floor in the state is going to be higher at a minimum. And you can say it's not everything, but it's most certainly not nothing either. And we saw this in a state like Florida, where in 2016, the Democrats had an advantage of 320 some thousand voters, and that was dwindled down to 2020's 134,000. And Donald Trump improved in the state by a significant amount. Then the dam just broke in 2022, and Republicans had a lead of 306,000 voters. And now in 2024, they had a lead of not even 1.1 million. Now it's almost 1.4 million. I mean, this is huge. You cannot just overstate it. There was a time when netting 20 some thousand voters, that would mean, you get the entire state. The margin of some of these races, like 2000's presidency, the 2018 Senate race, I'm sure there were plenty of others. They were decided by less than the net gain Republicans had over the past month in Florida. So good news out of Florida, but also New Jersey, because you can see where the state is heading, and it's heading in the Republicans' column. Now, the early voting data backs this up, because the Republicans would lag behind in terms of ballot returns. And that was not necessarily related to them being, likely to vote by mail. It just means how many requests versus returns do they have? And Republicans now are more eager. Democrats, even in 2024, where the state was really close, they had the advantage at this point. Now Republicans have the advantage in terms of enthusiasm, and that's huge because they're turning their ballots in at a higher rate than the Democrats. Could that change? I guess it could. But the early voting data overall shows more Republicans. Now, it's still going to be heavily Democrat because Democrats prefer to vote by mail. Republicans prefer to vote in person. Early in person still leans Republican, but election day, that's really where Jack is going to need a very, very large showing. And if he's able to do that, and he's able to ride the wave of the energy, it's going to be towards victory. And is that guaranteed? No, it's not. But still, you have all these scandals mounting for Mikey. Um, I'm butchering his name. You can correct me in the comments, but Mikey Sherrill. The cavalry of ads has barely begun to hit against her, and Jack is surging and making a name for himself in the polling data. And she's losing compared to a month ago. Jack has gained 4.2 percentage points. Mikey has lost about a point. So she's got that baked in Democrat high floor in New Jersey. I know it's still a blue state, the way we talk about it. Maybe a lot of people are thinking it's not going to be for much longer, and maybe it won't be. But as of right now, it's still a blue state. But again, this is a race where you have a recipe for a Republican to win, just like Connecticut in 2018. And that was an election during a blue wave in a state that voted for Hillary Clinton by like 11 or 12 points. And then the following election cycle, you had the governor's race there, was an open seat with an unpopular incumbent governor. And you also had this new character emerge on the Democrat side who had a lot of scandals in his closet. And you had a Republican candidate who had appeals to every wing of the party and was strong. Now, he ended up losing, but only because there was a third party spoiler candidate that was right leaning. And it took 4% of the vote away from him. And that's why you have Ned Lamont as the governor in the state of Connecticut. So, whichever way you want to look at it, one thing is true, and that is these statewide races are a little less polarized. And it's also true that if Republicans have a good night in New Jersey, and even if they outrun expectations in Virginia, that is not necessarily an indication that 2026 is going to be a great year for them. These are statewide races, and there's a lot of other factors at play. But what they do prove, especially if in New Jersey it's close, it proves that Republicans, under the right circumstances, can actually win elections when Donald Trump is not on the ballot. Even if you have a Republican president in office, it is doable. You just need to craft the perfect recipe for a victory. And you're kind of seeing that being crafted in New Jersey. Will it be enough? I don't know, but it's going to be competitive, or Jack ends up outrunning Donald Trump. That should tell you that, yes, Republicans in some of these states like Arizona, Michigan, you name it, they will be able to go out there in 2026 and possibly flip those governorships. So that's the good news. But obviously, we want to win. And when you see New York City on the verge of electing someone like Zoran Mindy, you probably have more of an exodus from New York City. And that means more people moving to New Jersey, which makes New Jersey purple, and more people moving to Pennsylvania, which makes it a little bit less purple and more of a, purplish red. And that helps Republicans because if Republicans win the state of North Carolina, Arizona, Nevada, and Pennsylvania, which I think Arizona and Nevada, they're significantly moving to the right. There are a lot of New Yorkers that'll leave and retire that are conservative in North Carolina, and that helps out. The party registration data there is phenomenal. They've gained for like 20 straight weeks or so, and then also Pennsylvania, that's the ballgame. There is no path for a Democrat if Republicans can shore up those big four states. Doesn't matter what happens in Georgia or Michigan or Wisconsin. So New Jersey, and on the topic of polling, I did want to bring this up. There's a fundraiser in the state of Virginia and the state of New Jersey for SoCal Strategies, which is the most accurate pollster in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race earlier in the year, and the fourth most accurate national poll in the 2024 presidential election. Excuse me. Another thing about 2026, I do think that a victory or a very close race in New Jersey and a single digit loss in Virginia would probably point to the fact that there's not going to be this massive blue wave people are talking about. That I will say, because if that was the case, I think that would transcend some of these dynamics. If we're talking about like a D+8 year happening again, you could go look at Virginia in 2017, go look at New Jersey in 2017, where Phil Murphy ended up winning by like 14 points or so. So I do think that if Republicans take the victory in New Jersey, the Democrats are definitely having a lot of work to do for 2026 if they want to claim the national environment is on their side. And when you have these polls that were released the other day, there's no real pathway for a Democrat victory here. You understand how left-leaning YouGov is, and both of their polls, they average out at D plus 3.5, with the new maps, they might not be enough to retake the House, let alone the Senate. And that's when you have an economy right now that's not really doing all that hot. Now, it could get worse, but it also could get a lot better by then. As we know, there's a lot of things that could happen. You have these rate cuts, you name it. Now, the New York Times poll. New York Times is left leaning. Their poll has been, I'd say, relatively fair in my opinion. And D plus two, that would be enough for Republicans to keep the House. Now, McLaughlin's got more of a right wing bias. We understand that, just like YouGov has a left wing bias for the polling. But regardless, you're looking at a year that is not really shaping up to be a wave year. And even if Democrats win the popular vote nationally, given the new maps, they have a lot of work to do to get out there and retake the House. I think that they're not the favorites at this point to do so. I'm going to be doing a House prediction probably within the next week or so, but I don't see the pathway for the blue wave, especially if these races are close, because it shows that there is still a good amount of Republican anger, especially in these blue states, in states like New York, California, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of House seats there. Maybe not as much as they're going to be up for grabs in California after whatever they're putting on the ballot this November, but still, there's no blue wave materializing. And while it is true that these governorships are not entirely indicative, I do think that they're more indicative than these special elections or, these Supreme Court races on some random Tuesday in the month of April in the state of Wisconsin. So, anyways, thanks for watching this video. Like the video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another episode. And you can follow me on social media. The links are all in the description. And if you want to support the channel, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/TWLedger. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.